I'm Michael Riley from Nativo. We are a content company that helps brands use AI to optimize content, navigate getting it live faster, all that good stuff. But no one's here to listen to me. Jennifer, who are you?
Well, I think people are here to listen to you too. I'm Jennifer Warren, and I lead Indeed's global brand marketing and creative group. Hopefully, everybody knows who we are and has used us in the past, but we are the world's largest job site and have been over the last few years really transitioning to becoming a hiring and matching platform. So I'm trying to change perceptions one by one. So if there's one takeaway, remember that.
I heard you change a perception earlier, by the way. We had that live conversation. You don't touch on, you lead a lot of different parts of the org. So everything from creative, social, tell me a little bit more about that because that's a lot to hold on to.
Yeah, so brand marketing at Indeed consists of brand advertising, media, social events, and creative, as well as a brand science team. So there are a lot of moving parts always on the team.
And I would assume AI works a little bit different for events and social. I mean, not to jump right into it, but how the heck do you navigate that?
Well, that's a great question. I would say at first it was quite chaotic in that I was driven a little bit by fear and also excitement. So people on my team would say, I immediately was like, okay, everybody, use AI. I don't know how to tell you to use it, figure out how to use it. And so that was our starting place, and then decided to take a deep breath, and now really stepping back and figuring out how to drive adoption and education and usage in a more systematic way by finding who our power users are between these teams, or enthusiasts and those that want to learn more about it, and identifying what are the top scalable use cases that tie business. So I would just say you've got to have a process, and it's a balance between trying to get people to figure out how to use it in their daily lives, as well as trying to do it in a way that's going to work and drive adoption across the team.
So what would you rank like bottom end to high end of your team's comfort with AI and just daily use? Is it all the same or does it feel pretty varied?
It's very mixed on our team. I would say, depending on the team, our creative team in particular, for those that might lead those teams, are very nervous about it, right? Because they want to make sure that it's not coming after their job, but we all heard Shelley say it's not going to come after their job, it's going to augment it and going to give power to them. So we've really been trying to drive that message of letting it take over the mundane task, like resizing banners and translating to different languages and things like that. So yeah, the media team is all about it, brand science team all about it. So really each team is in a different place when it comes to adopting or being interested in it at all, to be honest.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. What would you rate your comfort with AI?
I would say, I don't know, 7, 8, maybe more comfortable and excited about it. To be clear, though, when David invited me to do this, I said, I am no expert in AI. Are you sure it makes sense? And I think what I have some expertise around that I'm sure all of you do as well is how to lead during a time of change. We've all been through the COVID days and probably budgets going, to almost zero at times and cutbacks and things like that. And so I look at this as another opportunity to lead through transformation, trying to get people motivated and excited about the opportunity versus being afraid to, embrace the change for sure.
Yeah, it's a weird balance. When we were talking originally, we both found we're AI lives and probably never would have thought in our roles it was. But we're kind of like the application ourselves learning through it. How do you figure out the balance, which I'm sure a lot of us have dealt with, of someone that is using it for the right things versus we all probably have someone who works for us who's like spending all their time in AI saying, "Oh, I built a video in Midjourney and it's really cool." And you're like, "We can't use this for anything." So can my niece. How do you figure that out and make sure you give them guidance of not just leaning into AI, but doing the right things with it?
I think it goes back to, and a couple people have said this, really identifying what are the big problems that you're trying to solve and getting everybody rallied behind that. At the same time, I don't want to discourage people who are just dipping their toes in it to playing around with it a little bit. And so I certainly have some tolerance for like play around with it a little bit. But yes, the 10th video of someone's face on this random body dancing and singing, I'm like, yeah, we've seen that. So it's a little bit of a balance. One tactic that I heard from someone recently that I thought was interesting was they set aside time every single Friday and they asked their people to take a task that they had worked on during the week and try to tackle it through AI. And I thought that was a really interesting way of getting people to focus on actually solving a problem in their daily work lives versus just tackling something random because you could. And then taking what you learned that Friday and trying to apply it to your next week because it's highly likely to be a repetitive thing. So I thought that was interesting.
Does it feel then like there's people who are fixing issues with AI that they probably would have needed another team member? Does it change the scope of your team of who does what?
No, I think it is that enabler or the amplifier. When you're doing it that way, and they're focused on their task and how to make it better, I think that that's a good process for that. So it's not about adding people; it's about giving them more opportunity.
It feels like a bit democratized and a weapon for that in some way.
That's right. That's another reason I think I'm excited about this is my background is not in tech. I grew up on the brand side for sure, leading big campaigns and on a more traditional agency side. What I'm excited about is this gives me and a lot of people opportunity to leverage technology like we never have before. And so I just want to mention that as well. I think it's a great enabler for everybody.
There's a interesting time with you guys that's probably a bit different than anybody else in the room because you're talking about your team empowerment, they're learning how it helps you guys out, but you're also speaking to job seekers, people who are trying to advance in their career, people who are using your platform for career learnings. Does that cross over? Like, do you take those learnings and apply it? I know when I was looking at your guys' blog doing research for this, I was reading an article about imposter syndrome, thinking I sometimes have imposter syndrome about AI and what I actually know. So do those cross?
I think the way we think about AI or generative AI when it comes to job seekers is our brand platform is, well, first of all, I should have mentioned our mission is to help all people get jobs. And our brand platform, the way we translate that is the world can work better. So we're really looking every day of how do we leverage this technology to help the world work better. A couple of our specific goals are to shorten the length of time that it takes from being a job seeker to getting a better job. So we're really leveraging the technology for that. If we can speed up the time by 50%, which is our goal, it keeps a large population out of poverty, for example. So leveraging our technology to better match people between like skills and what employers are looking for really will make a difference, towards our mission. So we look at it from that perspective. We also focus a lot on job seekers that face barriers and bias in the workforce. So also using it to help us better skills match between job seekers and employers. So that's really how we're looking at how it translates over to job seekers in our business.
Yeah, there's a hidden nugget in there about preventing as many people going into poverty and getting people in jobs faster. Do you think that AI becomes a crucial skill for those job seekers in their career? Does it have that pop already?
It does. It's interesting. That's probably the number one question we get asked, as we should, as a jobs platform. Right now, we see that. Well, first, let me start like bigger picture. we all are very close to this because it impacts all of our jobs in this room, right? But when you look at jobs in total, it impacts 20% of jobs, is what our data tells us in terms of like heavy usage. And then there's about 35% of jobs that are more about physical things. So everything from drivers to healthcare, to beauticians. There are a whole lot of jobs that really require more being there in person that it doesn't impact. And then there's about 30% or so. I don't know if that math worked. I forget my statistics.
We're checking.
I can do math. There's the middle part, and
Test.
they didn't like my math joke. But we expect it to moderately impact, and that is where we are today. It doesn't mean that's where we're going to be a year from now or 6 months from now. So anyway, big picture, 20% of jobs we think it's going to impact in a heavier way. But that's only translated to about 2% of jobs on Indeed mentioning AI in the job descriptions, and that's general AI, though we've seen a huge growth, like 50% growth in the last couple of months with generative AI in the descriptions. But it's still a really small piece of job descriptions that we're seeing.
That's interesting because I know with even our engineering team, we would get way better responses when AI was built in the JD. And as you can imagine, engineers are very tough to come by. It's a very competitive area, and we're an engineer-led company. Way better when AI was listed. And when we brought them in and started showcasing their ability to work in what we have hackathons and everything else, it increased tenfold of how many AI projects we had. Do you guys share that kind of data in any way, or how do you guys leverage that? Is it for what you shape on your site, or is it outbound for the public?
Yeah, we have a team called the Hiring Lab, which is our group of economists that study that data and put it out. So if you Google Hiring Lab or ChatGPT it these days, you can find the site, and you can actually ask it questions and get the answers to those through our data. A very rich database.
Okay, so you're building all these different things. You're investigating yourself. You're empowering everyone to try things and just play effectively with these tools. How do you start sorting build versus buy? We've heard everything under the gamut today of people who are obviously working with LLMs, people who, very few, but there are some who are building everything in-house, someone who's just not quite there yet, but just using tools. Where do you guys sit in that? And how do you evaluate it?
Yeah, we definitely do a little bit of both. We are building our own version GPT LLM. Did I describe that right? Okay. He was telling me earlier we were talking. He's like, nobody has their own. I was like, okay, but we're building that, and that is important for all the reasons we talked about, to keep your data safe and all of that. So that's a build. And then it's also really expensive, right, to build everything. Though I will say tech companies are big about, we're just going to build everything ourselves. And then we're using obviously all the tools that are available to us, like ChatGPT and some of the other tools that are a lot less expensive to get into and use. So it's a little of both. I will say, I was pleasantly surprised recently when someone on my creative team had built a whole solution. I didn't know about it. Don't know where they got the budget for it. Did not know he was a coder, but I use it as an example of finding those people within the team that are passionate about solving a problem and using technology. And he's in the creative team, and he has a lot of stakeholders across the company, and it was driving him crazy the way that they were giving feedback. People were contradicting each other, and just it was a bunch of nonsense. So he actually built a tool to collect feedback, to basically push back and say, hey, you guys need to talk to each other and things like that. So anyway, that was a build case that I thought was really interesting because he did it out of trying to solve a problem. And then we started seeing other potential use cases for it. So some of it, I guess, can be organic too.
Yeah, we're seeing more and more brands start applying their brand briefs into their language models to make sure even things are just streamlined. You guys are pretty specific about making sure everything fits within the brand. Is that an application you guys have started exploring, or does that fit into that creative piece?
Yeah, well, thank you for that compliment, because I feel like we're constantly like, I get screenshots. I don't know any other brand marketers of like, who did this social post? That's off brand. So like I feel like I'm always like playing whack-a-mole a little bit, but we do try. And we are exploring solutions of brand GPT. I talked to a company, Brand Guard, the other day that's trying to create models around this. And I'm very interested if anyone's found like a successful way to do this, but something where we can, upload all of our brand guidelines and imagery and content and get it to learn to also create content. We put out so much content on social. I'm sure all of you do as well. And right now we have people just looking at it on brand, off brand, yes, no, and all of that. And it's like thousands of pieces of content. And the human element can never, I don't think, completely go away. But even if it could take a first pass and like really highlight things, I think that would be super useful. And then the other thing that's like been interesting at a brand level for me is, does anyone, we use VaynerMedia, I know Gary Vee and his recent book about social media. He talks about like, he thinks brand marketers need to loosen up quite a bit when it comes to the amount of content, what's on brand and off brand. And so as a team, we're always trying to figure out what is the right balance. We still want to manage our brand, but at the same time, we've got to find the right balance in our content creation. And that's where I think these tools can also help us understand what's really resonating, why is it resonating, and building more things like that, So I'm really optimistic about what we'll be able to do, but I think brand management might look a little bit different than it has in the past to some of us. So I think leveraging it in that way is going to be important.
Yeah, I think seeing consumption behaviors, which you guys have on your own blog, which you're probably evaluating with contextual signals, is such a strong piece that maybe wasn't always activated. So when you talk about creating more content and being able to do that faster, is that something you see as an AI unlock where you want to create more content, or is it more just about doing it correctly?
No, we need to create more. We That's probably our number one challenge we're trying to solve is how to scale our content quick enough and in a way that feels brand appropriate. So yeah, we're looking at it to help with that. I mean, small effort that we have used AI for is, I shouldn't say it's small, but we have used it to help develop. We have career guide content, which is thousands of pieces of content that we create. We still apply human oversight to it. And then we use Owly Writer to help us understand within Career Guide what people are engaging with. And then we use that to help us create social posts. So it's really about creating a whole content ecosystem, which I would say we're pretty early on our journey of connecting all of the dots between our data and our technology and the content. But I think that is the way of the future for brand marketers is how do you put it all together, which is not easy, but we're going to do it.
We're gonna do it. I feel like should be the theme of anyone tackling
I
AI.
like it. Yeah.
You said a second ago about working with brands and not brands, but other technology partners and learning from them and them approaching you on stuff. I can share when we've spoke to even some agencies before, the burnout around phrases like AI is real, right? Like we just got hit over the head with it super fast, and everyone knows it's important. Recently, we did a survey to start a meeting with about 50 people and said, what's the one thing you wish we didn't talk about today? And AI was 80% of the responses. Yeah. And then immediately after, we said, what would you like to learn about from us today? And AI was like 50% of the responses. So people responded AI to both. From your side, what is important for you to hear from partners? What are the signals for you to say, okay, I want to have a conversation, versus it feeling like everyone just saying the same thing?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And yeah, we get, certainly like 50 people a day. It feels like reaching out with the new latest and greatest like AI tool. And it's hard to like keep up with it all. And I'm, in this place where I want to learn what's out there. I want to learn the latest and greatest. So there's certainly some more so than in the past where I might take a meeting just to like learn something and figure out if it applies to my business. But at the same time, I think what helps is really understanding first, like what are the big problems you're trying to solve. You know how I mentioned earlier, like we're really going to get focused on here are our biggest business cases, and then how do you help solve that? Because there are so many problems out there, and I mean so many solutions out there. And then I guess the other thing is be patient, because I feel like some people are like ahead of where big brands are, as it's been mentioned a couple of times. When it comes to working with big companies, there's a legal process, a procurement process, there's budgeting process, there's getting people on board, there's you've got to collaborate with 10 teams to like buy off on something new. And so it just takes some time to like work through the system. And so just being patient and baking that into your growth plans, and knowing that you might be 10 steps ahead of the people that you're trying to sell to, and that you're going to have to educate and be patient along the way, I think is also important.
All right, removing the Indeed piece from it a little bit. I know you even started sharing some prompt guides and things that you've used yourself in social. Have you started using AI in your personal life separately from work?
I have. I'm going to first, though, share, if it's okay, because that just
Please.
reminded me of how I used it today, which was super effective. And this is work, and then I'll get to your personal question, but we were going to make a presentation. Actually, we were trying to sell in a campaign that's really bold, and we're all very excited about it, but it's bold. And so I put like the concept into Claude, actually, and said, give me an argument for why this campaign is going to help grow our business. And then I said, and then give me the argument to how this is going to go wrong, and like, potentially, because it's kind of a risky effort. And then went through those arguments and kind of talked back and forth to it. Well, tell me how we can avoid this and that. And so we went into that meeting, and then I shared it out with the team for two reasons. One is I am trying to role model ways that we can use technology in our daily, working lives just right now, with technology that we have. And then secondly, it really helped us prepare, and some of the things did come up in the conversation. So it helped us prepare, but I think even more than that is we're still in development stage. It's going to help us potentially catch some things, make it better. So it's a different use case I'd heard about from someone else. I was like, oh, I'll give that a shot, and it was really useful. There's so many different ways that you can use it to help you prepare and get research. On the personal front, I am in process of planning a trip to Portugal and Italy in the next couple of weeks, very last minute, very, very last minute. So, in all out panic, I'm like, what's my itinerary? Where are the top places to stay? How do you get on a beach in Portugal? Because I don't see any chairs anywhere. And so, like all these questions. And it immediately came back and it gave me an itinerary. I mean, there was definitely some back and forth. I'm like, asked about a beach club, and it sent me to some retailers, like not that kind. So anyway, but it was, really helpful. So I'm using it a lot, I feel like, in my daily life right now too.
Yeah, I've definitely saved myself through wedding planning and acting like I've done a lot more work than I have with it. So I'll
Yeah.
take that. It's saved me a lot of
that's
headache.
that's brilliant,
Yeah, well,
actually. Brilliant
I
use.
was really good at using Spark Notes in college too, so I'm a original user. Um, so there's hope for the humans when it all comes down to it. It sounds
Yeah,
like
that's
the
right.
creative element. It sounds like through everything you say is still such an important piece of how you guys do it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we care a lot about, when you're asking about different teams, how they're adopting. And I would say the creative team certainly made a lot of good points. We're a human brand. We want to be authentic. We want to help all people get jobs. This might make some people's jobs go away. Like, can we truly use it for like translation when that's 10 people's jobs now? And so there were a lot of discussions, that came up around this, and wanting to make sure that we do things in the right way that's right for our brand. And it's probably different, depending on each brand. Like, one of the examples, that was brought up that I love and is Dove, and how they put an ad out there saying we're never going to use AI to like recreate what a woman looks like. I'm like, that makes perfect sense for their brand, and we're never going to create a fake job story that we're going to tell and pretend like is real. And so I think it's really important to know kind of how are you going to use it and how are you not going to use it, but keep that human element to it, because that is what makes us distinctive as brands. Is if we just start, what was the generica? Was that the term? I wrote that down too. Like, we don't want to be generica. I mean, that's the whole point in brand building, is you want to stay unique and be human. And so I would agree that it's not going to take our jobs. It gives us more time to be human and to make things as distinctive and good as possible.
So yeah, I think it's clear that you guys have done a good job of being a unique, very unique business compared to a lot of us here, because you do sit a little bit on both sides. You're almost a publisher, you're almost a tech company, you're kind of a social platform in some regard. You touch a lot of sides of it, but there's also that human element we just talked about. And I'd like to highlight a little bit. You guys have done this program around Rising Voices, which I think is really cool. How does that fit in? Does it sit separate? Can you talk a little bit about what you guys have done with Rising Voices?
Sure. Thanks for asking. We're actually launching our season 4 next week out here at Tribeca Film Festival. So yeah, Rising Voices is a program that we started 4 years ago. Instead of spending $1 million, on an ad, not that we spend $1 million on each ad, but it works well for the way we tell the story. But instead of spending the $1 million, give 10 BIPOC filmmakers $100,000 and let them create films, and then give them a spotlight, because we believe talent's universal and opportunity is not. And so we really wanted to give that opportunity, pair them with mentors. We debuted out here at Tribeca. So anyway, it's been great in terms of getting also them a lot more jobs. Also, as you guys know, there were some films that showed how, or in the first presentation, it was shown how films really have changed culture in terms of making people scared of AI and robots. We believe that too. Like, films really shift and have a lot to do with how people view things. And so anyway, we wanted to make sure that we had a diverse set of filmmakers telling stories. We focus it on jobs and work and all of that. I don't remember where I was going with what that has to do with AI. I guess it all ties back to our mission in helping the world work better. Not really using AI for it, but all ties together to the mission.
Okay, so what I'm taking away is the world can work better, be it through inside the business, empowering people to do things, keep telling stories, make sure you foster an area where people want to learn. What am I missing?
That was a good summary. Did I say all that? That sounded good.
That's fair.
Okay. What are you missing? I think that was a really good list. I think that was a good list. I would just say, and other people have repeated this, I don't know. I wish I could pull the room to understand where are we all on our AI journey, but I agree with what's been said. It's also hard to come up with new things at 4:15 on the second day, but I think it's all of our responsibility to lead through this, to meet people where they are. People are at different levels of understanding. People are afraid. I've had people come to me I'm actually afraid to embrace this technology. So I think as leaders, it's important that we meet people where they are.
I think that's a good way to use our last minute. So we'll break it into 3 groups of. First group will be, we're just starting to really touch AI and integrate it into our teams. This is self-reported. Middle is, it's definitely part of what we do, but we need to keep going. And group 3 is, we are fully integrated. Everything's working at 100%. So raise of hands for group 1, we're just starting.
Yay.
Okay.
I'm not
2 being it's very integrated, but we have a lot more to go. And 3 being, it's essential to everything we do. We're ramped. Everything's perfect. Okay, I figured we might have 1. That was about it. Awesome. Well, this has been great. Between this and learning that I think Domino's inspired Silicon Valley's not hot dog before this. I don't know if anyone picked up on that. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.